South America has some incredible football teams, but they very rarely get to prove themselves against Europe's best. So today I've swapped last season's Premier League top 8 with 8 clubs from South America, and over the course of 50 years, see if any can win a Champions League. But first, they have to actually qualify for it, which none of them have in Season 1. And even worse, 3 clubs have been relegated. This hasn't been the start I was expecting, especially as Palmeiras were expected to come 5th this season. But we will have clubs promoted next season, as I've moved every team from the 2023 Copa Libertadores into England's football pyramid. Brazilian sides Flamengo and Atlético Mineiro have been promoted, but Peruvian side Sporting Cristal are going down. Impressively, 7 out of League One's top 8 are all from South America. Only Deportivo Nubalense from Chile finished lower. And it's the same story in League 2, with just Metropolitanos from Venezuela finishing outside the top 8. So potentially in just a few seasons' time, all 20 of the Premier League could be from South America. And in Season 2, we finally get some teams qualifying for Europe, with Atlético Mineiro in 6th place qualifying for the Europa League, and Flamengo in 8th qualifying for the Conference League. Sadly though, we are still seeing some clubs get relegated. River Plate are promoted as champions of the championship, but Olimpia, Medellin and Racing Club all lost in the playoffs, with Norwich eventually winning them. There's also a couple of clubs getting relegated to League 1 as well, but luckily we have had 3 promotions from League 1 to replenish the championship. League 1 is a little bit more spread out this season, but Orcas have managed to win the title with a record points haul. Heading into the next season, we need to know how these Brazilian clubs got on in Europe. However, Atlético Mineiro could only reach the quarterfinals of the Europa League, but Flamengo lost in the final of the Conference League, despite being the better team with way higher XG. Next season, they have a chance in the Europa League as they came 6th in the Premier League. Also worth pointing out, 3 clubs have been promoted from the Championship, 3 clubs have been promoted from League 1, but just the 1 club has been promoted from League 2, leaving Metropolitanos as the only club in this division. So how did Flamengo do in the Europa League the next season? Well, they lost in the quarter-finals. The exact same stage that Mineiro lost at the previous season. But there won't be any South American clubs playing in Europe next season, as they all finish outside the top 7. So not really the best of seasons, but it does give us a chance to fast forward to season 15 to see how much change there's been. And the reason I chose season 15 is because Botafogo have won the Premier League. It's the first club from South America to win the title. It's actually the first time Chelsea and Everton haven't won the title, and the first time a South American club's even come in the top 3. Hopefully we'll see them win the Champions League next season. There are 6 other South American clubs in the Premier League, however 2 of them have just been relegated. But Cerro and Libertad are both from Paraguay, so it's interesting to see that it's not just the Brazilian and Argentinian sides that are doing so well. We've got other countries from South America doing really well getting into that top flight. The 2 clubs being relegated are being replaced by Palmeiras and Atlético Mineiro, with Racing Club and Melgar missing out on the playoffs. Sadly, we have seen 3 clubs getting relegated, including the strongest, although they came 24th this season, so I guess they are the weakest. All the South American teams in League 1 have finished in the bottom half of the table, with aside from Ecuador being relegated. But they'll be the only club in League 2 next season, as Patronato have been promoted and Argentinos Juniors relegated. They'll be joining Colo-Colo, Nacional, Metropolitanos and Orcas in the National League. In the National League South, we have Deportivo Nublense, Liverpool FC and Monagas. It is fascinating to see how these clubs have developed. One's just won the Premier League and others are struggling in the National League South. Whilst we've had no winners of the Conference League, Botafogo also got to a final but lost to Athletic Club. Flamengo also reached the final of the Europa League in 2029 but lost to Schalke, and so far no one's come close to winning a Champions League. So we'll jump forward 15 years to 2052, where Chelsea and Everton are still dominating the league, but Botafogo did win a second title in 2045, as well as coming runners-up and 3rd place on quite a number of occasions. Boca Juniors also seem to be cementing themselves as a top 4 Champions League club, whereas River Plate have qualified for the Europa League by winning the FA Cup. In fact, they become the 3rd club from South America to win the trophy, after Flamengo and Botafogo have won it in the past. Only Botafogo have ended up winning the League Cup, but we have seen a whole host of different teams win the Papa John's trophy. Corinthians, Sporting Cristal, Bolivar, Colo-Colo and Orcas have all lifted the Pizza Cup. But what about a European competition? Well, we've finally seen Flamengo win the Europa Conference League. They lifted the title in 2040, after having a fairly kind route through to the final. But since winning it, no other South American side has reached the Conference League final. As for the Europa League, we've had some very good success. Botafogo won the Europa League in the 2040 season, the same year Flamengo won the Conference League. They then won it 2 years later. River Plate won it a few years after that. Flamengo finally picked up their Conference League in 2047, before Cerro won 2 titles in 3 years. Even more impressively, only one team has lost a final in that time, which was Flamengo the year after they won the Conference League. Pretty impressed with club Cerro Porteño from Paraguay with their 2 Europa Leagues and 1 League 2 trophy. But this must bode well for the Champions League, right? We've had 3 winners in the past few seasons, Botafogo first winning it in 2042-43, beating Chelsea in the final, before they beat Everton in the final 5 years later, and then Boca Juniors recently overcame Bayern Munich to become the second South American side to win the Champions League. The Boca Juniors run was really impressive, beating Real Madrid, Everton, Juventus and Bayern Munich. So basically, things have gone exactly to plan, and we've still got 20 years left of this simulation to find out if they can win even more trophies. So in 2072, the Premier League has opened up a little bit more. Botafogo have gone on to win a few more titles, but Stoke and Cardiff are also creeping in with a few wins, as Boca Juniors, Watford and Crystal Palace come runners-up on the odd occasion. But Botafogo have dropped off in recent years, as this current season they finished in 16th place, just avoiding relegation. Flamengo are the best team currently, but actually it is the 2 teams from Paraguay, Cerro Porteño and Libertad, who are in 10th and 11th. They feel to me like the biggest shocks of this video. I can't believe that these 2 sides from Paraguay are absolutely insane. I was fully expecting the top teams to be from Brazil and from Argentina, and everyone else to drop off, so this was a lovely surprise. The best team in the championship is Alianza Lima from Peru, so again, more teams not from Brazil and Argentina doing really well. And Lima for a long time were actually an established Premier League club. There are a couple of Brazilian sides in League One which I find very surprising, but even more so, teams like Altrincham and Dulwich Hamlet have found their way into the top half of the division. League 2 sees Racing Club and Atlético Nacional getting themselves relegated into the National League, which is where we actually find quite a few South American clubs. Colo-Colo have been promoted, but Nacional lost in the playoffs to Olimpia, who also get promoted. Deportivo Pereira are in 8th place, the strongest in 16th, but the biggest shock for me is Corinthians down in 17th. I thought they were going to do amazingly well, but at least they weren't relegated like Bolivar. But there's also a lot of clubs in the National League South. Argentinos Juniors may have just won the title, but Independiente del Valle are in there, so are Liverpool FC, Medellin are there too, and Metropolitanos have been relegated. But let's look at some successes instead, starting off with the Europa Conference League, where only one side has won the Conference League in the last 20 years, and that's Cerro Porteño, who won it twice in 2062 and 2065. Frustratingly for Botafogo, they lost it to Nice in this most recent season. Last time we saw plenty of clubs win the Europa League, this time not a single one has done in the last 20 seasons, but Boca Juniors have lost 2 finals and Flamengo lost 1 as well. So it all comes down to the Champions League. Have any clubs won more Champions Leagues? And the answer is yes, Botafogo have won another 3 Champions Leagues since the last time we checked, in 2057, 2062 and 2066. They've also been the dominant force in the FIFA Club World Cup, winning 4 of them. So Botafogo have been by far the most successful team in this video. However, second place for me is Cerro Porteño. I think the side from Paraguay have been brilliant. But were they more successful than clubs from Africa? Because I also moved the best teams from Africa to England to see how they get on. And if you want to see those results, it's on screen for you right now.